gamification is amazing. Gamification to where you take staff into an operating room and put them in that scenario, literally, and have them figure out what's the issues with this operating room right now that's going on. And the educator can see, what do my staff know, you know?
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now, it's time to roll back and start the first case.
On this week's episode of First Case, we are speaking with Matt Lowe, Clinical Programs Director for SSIs at Medline. And Chris, we have come to the end of season 16, and we are at our final episode, and it's crazy to me that we have already gotten here.
It is. It's nuts. It feels every single year like this just keeps happening faster and faster. But I'm excited to talk to Matt. I love what they're doing at Medline, and his title is, I kind of want it. But it's a great way to put a bow on how do I. So I hope people take it in. They advocate for themselves. They advocate for their patient. And he's going to teach us some great things on how to do that.
You are absolutely right. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Matt Lowe.
Hi, I'm Chris Blevins.
And I'm Melanie Perry.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to First Case.
Joining us now is Matt Lowe, Clinical Programs Director for SSIs at Medline. And today we are wrapping up season 16, and we are talking about how to engage staff in education and how to make learning fun and how to make the knowledge stick. And there's no better person to interview for this conversation than Matt, because this is what he does, and education is his thing. But Matt, it is a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. This is actually my pleasure to be on here. It's an honor to be on your program. So thank you for having me.
Well, I think we're going to have a great conversation today. And really, if we go back to the way you and I were connected, we have to thank another podcast guest, Phyllis Quinlan, for her connection. Phyllis does coaching at AORN events and other places around the country. But when she runs across somebody that she thinks would be a good guest for the show, or somebody that we just really need to talk to because they're doing amazing things, I get an email from her or a LinkedIn message that connects me to somebody. And so you are one of those people that she connected me to, and I'm very grateful for her. And Phyllis has done a couple of different interviews with us. You can search for her in our list of podcasts and listen to her podcast, but she's all about coaching and resilience and all those great things that we need a lot more of. So highly recommend Phyllis and her interviews. But Matt, why don't we just jump right into the conversation? But first, tell everybody a little bit about you.
Oh, no problem. Where do I even start? Years ago, I'm from a small town in Kentucky. I went to college on music scholarships and realized quickly that I did not want to stay in the education field of music. I didn't want to stay back in high school again. I didn't want to be a band director. I just graduated high school.
I mean, come on, I get that.
I didn't want to deal with high schoolers the rest of my life, I guess you could say. So I joined the military. I joined the Navy. I went and took their ASVAB test, and thank you. I took the ASVAB test, and they sat down with me, and they looked at the needs they have currently for the military, and they said, "Do you want to be a corpsman?" I had no clue what a corpsman was, and I asked, "What is it?" Yes. And they said, "It's exactly." They said, "Pretty much a paramedic, an EMT for the military." Corpsmen are in the Navy and a part of the Marine Corps as well. While I was at that school, They came through and said, we need some surgical techs. And I said, what is a surgical tech? And they explained what the surgical tech role is. And I said, I would love to do this. This is surgery. This is awesome. So I was trained as a surgical tech in the military. I spent 5 years in the military. After getting out of the military, I worked with some amazing companies outside of Nashville, Tennessee, that were connected through them as well, by the way, not just Phyllis. They've been a part of some of the series. And I trained as a first assistant. And so I'm a certified surgical tech, certified first assistant. And then I used my military money and gained my nursing license as well. And I'm a certified perioperative nurse now. So I'm one of those few eggs that can fill most of the roles within an operating room.
Yeah, definitely makes you kind of a unicorn because you can do all of it.
Quite valuable.
It is. I'm very blessed. I describe to people that I feel like that I've fallen up steps in my entire career. And and so
that's a good thing, though.
I'm very thankful for my career.
That is awesome. Okay, so then, well, first, thank you for your service. We are both military families ourselves, and we know what goes into the lives of the families and the service members. So thank you very much for your service and the time that you gave to serve our country. And I also know that that makes people awkward when you say that. So I'm going to move on anyway.
I truly appreciate it. I always do, but it's not needed. I thank you for that.
Yeah, I get that. So you didn't want to go back to high school and relive all the drama and be a high school band teacher, but you've ended up in education anyway, and now you are teaching adult learners instead, those of us in the operating room. Tell me a little bit about what you do in your role as an educator.
It's very ironic, isn't it? I didn't want to get back into education, and that's my career now. And I'm in a more difficult situation because now I am trying to provide education and change practices to educated people and surgeons, nurses, surgical techs, everybody who are professionals who know their field. And you're trying to provide the education sometimes and on best practices. So it's kind of ironic in that sense. My role now for Medline is I work with a very unique side within Medline that is not sales-based. My transition to Medline was very difficult. I did not jump over because I am very ethically driven. All I care about, my passion, is best practices and how do you take care of a patient. I'm rooted in the two beliefs that you treat every patient like they're a loved family member and that you always do what's best for the patient, no matter what. And so transitioning to Medline was not easy, but my role is literally a nurse. I make sure that education is being followed and that best practices are being followed for hospital systems. And so I am truly pretty much an OR educator on steroids. We work with hospital systems to look objectively at their system, what's going on with their system. I dive into electronic charting for SSIs. Is it a system level? It is a single facility level issue that's going on. I look at their charts. I have electronic charting access to their SSIs to do deep dives, to look into focus areas of education. Is it practices that are being followed by staff and or surgeons? Do they need bundles built into their system, which of course everybody needs bundles, obviously. Or is it central sterile department? Is there issues going on with their sterilizers? What is happening? So we do deep root cause. And then I go on site and provide focused education based on all the data points that we pull out to say what is needed with each. Is it facility-wide? Like I said, is it just a single site? Is it a system? Is it the umbrella that they need to fix their policies, procedures? And so we come in, look at it objectively. And the best part of Medline is we have the manpower, whereas, as you know, OR educators, a lot of times I've seen across the system, are just overran with just onboarding new staff. It's a continual process every week. I have Mondays, I bring somebody in. Tuesday, I bring them to this room. Wednesday, they go to this service. And so OR educators, I found, are just burdened. Burden is not the correct term, but they're just burdened with.
Oh, I don't know. I think it is.
I think burden is the right term because it's all the paperwork drills.
Oh, it is, yeah, and it's vital. It really is. Like the onboarding process is vital, but they don't have the time, capabilities, or processes in place to stay on board with making sure their staff are still providing best practices. And Medline, I love my role.
I'm an educator too. So I love how you already brought to the forefront how much like you go and you study before you get to teach, right? There's so much background information that you get before you come up and teach these educators in these hospital systems. But that brings us to the biggest thing about our episode, which is engagement, right? We talked a little bit about that in the beginning, that, you know, the attention span, even of an adult learner. I mean, God forbid high schoolers. I have a high schooler.
I do too.
So, right? It's like 2 seconds, but that attention span means that you're totally fighting for engagement from the minute that you walk in that door. And so how do you take all that metadata and all the analyses that you did on the front end and then get them to see it from an actionable standpoint when you're in the classroom with them?
You hit it on the head. That's how do we engage staff, honestly.
I really want to know for my own personal gain, to be honest.
This is a selfishly motivated question.
Yeah, this is all for me. Yeah.
That's the lottery question right there.
Right.
How do we engage all the staff, or how do you make sure the staff care that they're doing best practices? And that is such a difficult thing to do. And we spoke about PowerPoints. PowerPoints are so 1980s, 1990s. Just in the past, we can no longer do those.
So boring.
The traditional way of education in the perioperative setting is, once a week on a Wednesday morning or once a month on a Wednesday morning, all the staff gather in the break room and we would listen to a PowerPoint or whoever was brought in for 1 hour. And as we all know, most of the staff would disengage, or they come in, take a donut, sign the piece of paper, and they leave because they have a large case to get ready for, understandably. And so how do we
we got a room to get ready for. Yeah. It's and then I mean, I'm just going to be real honest. I mean, I would look around the room, and the room that we were sitting in, because it was every Tuesday morning at 7:00. That was, what we had, or 6:30, whatever time it was. But every Tuesday morning, because we had later starts that day to make time for our morning meeting and our staff education, which is good because a lot of hospitals don't make time in their schedule for education. So just the fact that we did make time for it was good. But the staff would get in those chairs, they bust out their phone, they just sit there. They were present in body, but they weren't mentally checked in or engaged, because you're clicking a PowerPoint at me at 7:00 in the morning. I'm tired. I haven't had enough coffee yet to be awake. And then this room is kind of dark. And so I might want to take a nap. So yeah, there are some hurdles to overcome, both physical, people being tired, people being just generally not caring, or they don't like the educator, so they don't want to listen or whatever. And then also that pressing need. I have totals to get set up for. I've got a huge total to do at 8:00, and we got to go. I got stuff to do. So there's a bunch of barriers and a bunch of hurdles to grasping your staff's attention and keeping it, and actually walking away with knowledge gained, right?
Exactly. You have to make it relevant and job specific to the staff. It's not just general education. You have to be engaged with the staff the entire time. You have to make them understand what that link is to this education and to that patient and how they're providing that care, and why does it matter to their job. When you're a staff nurse, you're doing the job every single day. It's like, why do I need to change what I'm doing? They're not staying abreast of the changes that are coming down the pipe, or studies that are coming down that we're saying, hey, this practice is actually better than your practice, and so we need to change it. And so staying with that engagement with the staff is what's important, making them understand, why do I need to change my practice around? How's it going to help the patient better? Showing them that data. And, that change in the staff. The 1 hour in services don't really work. People check out, and when they are there, like you said, they're not engaged. They're not listening. They're talking with their friend, playing games on their phone back and forth. What works better is micro-learning, 5-10 minute sessions. Gamification is amazing. Gamification to where you take staff into an operating room and put them in that scenario, literally, and have them figure out what's the issues with this operating room right now that's going on. And the educator can see, what do my staff know,
Okay. All right. So let's go into that a little bit deeper, because gamification, gamification
sounds like so much fun.
It was like a huge topic at AORN this past year, and a lot of different sessions on gamification. And there was a lot of dialogue around it. And there has been a lot of information out there about the benefit of gamification. So give us an example, or maybe like walk us through a scenario or something. What are we gamifying about learning so that it's sticking with our staff better?
It's the future, I think, of education. It's so multimodal of how you can do it. One example is taking, say 4 or 5 staff into an operating room, and there's a scenario in an operating room that you're giving them, and you say, find the errors, or, walk me through the process of how you're getting this patient ready for the surgery, or get this room ready for a back fusion. What do you need to set up? How do you need to set it up? And then you, as the educator, can see what is actually going on with my staff with no patient involvement. And so that's just one example. Why it's great is you can actually do the gamification online now through different platforms you can use through gamification is online versions of it, to where not only do you get to put your staff into a situation and say what's wrong with the situation or fix the situation or what do you notice, but by doing this, you can also see where is their base knowledge. What do they know already? And then you're also proving their competency process through there, because they have to finish the process correctly to finish the game. And that offers you as an educator a competency, and not just clicking through I know there are different platforms that hospitals use for annual validations, but as we all know, staff just go click while they're watching a TV show. Exactly. Or you mute the video, and when the video's done, you hit click. Other examples are
nobody's
like
ever
Jeopardy
done that
scenarios.
Ever. Jeopardy, yeah, that would be good. Yeah,
Jeopardy. Pitting staff against each other, having a team or individuals. Exactly, and they love it. But it also gives you that competency because they have to prove that they know the answer to finish it. Family Feud style gamifications, absolutely fun. The staff remember it. They have to think about the question, think about the answers, and that engages them. And it's just fun. And these are easy to build. They can be basic ones about setting up a minor procedure. How are you doing it? To a system-wide problem. What's going on? You can curtail them easily.
Yeah, these conferences that we've been going to, the big one's been like an OR escape room. You've heard of those, right? Have you all used something similar out at Medline? How does that work? And does it build competencies too?
Yes, we're trying to look at a few systems to build those, and I'm working with some of our other departments I have a lot of help with in Medline. That's one thing I love about it. And so we're looking and comparing different platforms right now as to what would be best, because then it would have to be incorporated into the hospital systems before your staff education. And so what's the best platform? And we're looking at how to make that universal right now.
What you're saying, though, then is like the escape rooms. It's not like you go into an OR and you get locked in and you can't get out until you solve the problem. It's more of a log into an online platform and work through the scenario, and then you get out or escape once you've done it. But I envision my knowledge of the escape room, right? You go and you get locked in the room and you're just stuck in there. And I'm like, how are you going to lock me in an OR? Like, I mean, I could probably get myself out of this, but I can see using an online platform for learning, especially for different services, for things that maybe your ortho team doesn't necessarily do ENT very often, and you can put them in some like ENT scenarios, or your urology team getting stuck in ortho. How about that?
Or
anyway,
a nurse
so like different ways
surge
that you
tech
could,
things,
yeah,
and then surge tech having to do nurse things.
Have to do
or
some
sterile
circulator
processing.
things. Yeah, so there
That
I can
would
see
be
potential.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yes,
come talk to us later.
I can see a lot of potential.
You're bringing. You hit my pain points. I love that everything has become so specialized in the operating room, because the patient outcomes are better than they've ever been in our entire history of surgery. But now we've become so specialized that staff need that specialized training and that education, because that's their role. Robotics, for instance. But you have staff at a bigger hospital, they do robotics every single day. And if you want to ask them to step over if they're on call and they're being called in to a fracture, they have no clue. The surgeon says, give me the mallet. And they're like, which one's the mallet? Or how do I set up a HANA table?
Okay, so that's
it's great for patient outcomes.
That is absolutely true,
and it makes it difficult for the hospitals.
Yeah. Prime example, one of our other guests this season, Lindsay Joyce, we talked to her a few episodes ago. She was talking actually about a very heavy topic and how we deal with death in the OR, but she is a CVOR nurse. That she is specialized. She does hearts. And then this past weekend was a holiday weekend and she picked up general call. She ended up getting called in for a robotics case. So you have your CVOR nurse circulating a robot and she's like, okay,
what do I do?
But thankfully for her, the robotic team leader was also on call for scrubbing. So she was fine. She was, and I got to learn something new and I got to really see this and I had all the support. Now, everybody's not so lucky to have all the support they need when something like that happens. But in this case, it worked out really well. But you hit on a very important point. It's great that we're specialized. It is fantastic that we are so focused on these specialties and we really have great patient outcomes. But it is hard on the staff when suddenly you're yanked from your normal and thrown into something different. And you're like, and it's kind of like the thing we've talked about this whole season. How do I do this? I don't know. And so, the education is the foundation for keeping us on our toes for all these specialties so that when the inevitable happens and we end up, in my case, when I get pulled out of ortho and I'm in GYN or I'm in ENT, my least favorite services ever, I can actually take good care of my patient because I've been educated and I am up to date on best practice. But it's a very excellent point on how important it is to stay on top of all the learning.
I've seen across the field, you have smaller rural hospitals where say 5-6 ORs in their main hospital, and the staff are comfortable stepping in from one surgery to the next because they have to. They're expected to do that. But then you get to the larger hospitals that are very specialized, and you have, say, 3 rooms that are dedicated robotics, and those staff never step out of robotics. And it's not to their, to their lack of knowledge. They're specialized in that. So how does the hospital system treat that when they have staff taking call that might have a trauma case coming in or another case? And so it's created instances of great patient outcomes, but it's also created issues for the hospitals to address that. How do we still train our staff and make sure that they're practicing best practices in other situations? And you have staff that are comfortable stepping out of their area, their bubble, and you have staff that are not comfortable. I've loved stepping into other services. I'm like you. I can't stand ENT, but I appreciate it. ENT
I don't want to work with snot.
Our ENT audience out there is going, what is happening here?
I'm gonna sit here bashing a whole service line. Sorry.
I love you guys. That's everywhere I go. There's always, unless it's a specialized center, you have the 1, maybe 2 staff at a hospital that know eyes or know ENT, and nobody else in the entire system knows anything about it whatsoever.
Nobody else does. Nobody else does.
I think one of my favorite,
and that's
one of my favorite things that you're saying is that these things you are creating are going to be here for reference for people when it's not, because when you're in the mix of it, when it's a critical on-call situation, that is not the time to go, look up things, right? We don't have time. But all of the gamification and these modules and these competencies that you all are creating are going to be there for those moments where maybe you don't have it to follow or you are awake and not 5 minutes before a case, for them to go back and learn, hey, I'm not really good at ortho, says Chris. So I'm interested in learning more about a HANA table, or I'm interested in learning more about whatever. These are references that they can then go back and train on in a less pressure situation. And that's just really cool, for you guys to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I can see too, before we switch the mic back over to you, Matt, but I'm going to jump off Chris for a second. But so I can see too the value of having a bunch of modules, a bunch of things online that are short, that are quick, that you can, I just want to know this one thing. Just tell me this one thing. It's kind of like the bloggers with the recipes. I don't need your backstory. I just want to know how to make chicken spaghetti. Just show me. And that's it, And so when I want to learn I want to learn the HANA table, or I want to learn how to use this abdominal wrap in colonoscopies. I just want to know the thing. And so I can see the benefit of, okay, there's this, I can log in, I can look at it. And then also our educators can be empowered to, yes, they're assigning more learning, right? They're assigning more modules. And then that kind of gets back into your learning platforms where people are like, oh my gosh, I have like 80 of these due by the end of the month or whatever. And suddenly it's lost its value because I just have to get through a checklist. So how do we split the difference, I guess, between putting the learning out there, gamifying it, or making it engaging so that staff learn, they take away what they need, and they have access to what they need to know. But it doesn't become just a bunch of education modules I have to go get done by the end of the month, and I don't read a single one. I just click and get done. Do you understand my question, and how do we thread that needle?
100%. It's terribly difficult to accomplish because as we all know, in the OR, it's high pace, high stakes. When can we step away from our job to go complete our education? Nobody wants to do it on your break time. When you get done with your shift, you want to clock out and leave. You're not going to do it while you're home either. And so it's important. What makes it easier is those micro learning sessions, 5-10 minutes tops at all for any session whatsoever. Otherwise, the person is checked out. So just 5-10 minute sessions at a time. And it's peer-led education. You need to have, for hospital systems, you need to have unit champions, not just an OR educator who oversees all of it, but you need to have unit champions who know the staff. You need a leader within, say, robotics, a leader within total joints, a leader for back fusions, a leader for cranies, and they know what their staff need. My staff is amazing at this. We don't need them to have more education on this because they're doing it. I check them off annually for their competency. I know that they're proficient in this, and I trust them that I would step in and be a patient under their care. But if this person was to go switch over to a hernia, she's not touching me. Sorry, So you need to have that peer-to-peer modeling where they know, you know that. If you have surgery, you know who you're choosing, right?
I do know. I would not trust you to cut toast in half. Yes, we're not doing this.
And why do we have...
Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
No, it's so true. Why do we have that staff who we trust to touch us and who I don't even want in the hospital the day that I'm there? Because there's that possibility that somebody calling sick and that person's shoved to my room. There's those people, but we're all professionals. So why is that? We all need to provide best care, best practices. And so being engaged with the staff, having educators and unit champions who are the best at their job and engaging with the staff. And when you go into education, you're not just going into an office and sitting there. You're in the OR still all the time. You need to be walking around and seeing what are the needs of my staff. Do they have the equipment? Do they know how to use the equipment? What's going on? And just having a personal relationship with the staff. And that helps engage that.
I love how you say unit champion, because doing that, like being a leader, is very, very different from being a manager. And you have to actually know. And that's where coming and like closing the loop is involved, because it's one thing for somebody to do these micro certifications and check it off, but somebody needs to go back in there and learn, because, and look and see, did somebody barely pass this competency, or did someone, knock it out of the park? And where are the weaknesses, and where does the retraining need to happen so that they can then come back and do a better job? And how are we ensuring that management or leadership is closing that gap and doing the retraining for those people who are, maybe not so strong and proficient in the areas where, it's obvious, right? So that they're not just earning a paycheck, like they're actually caring for a patient.
Exactly. And then the unit leaders, the unit champions, need to be recognized for it. You can't just ask one of your staff to take on additional responsibilities. And this is the fight you'll have with your leadership is, compensation. We need to be compensated for our education, our experience. We don't need to just get 1 year's experience at a hospital and jump ship, because that's the only way to make a true raise as a nurse or surgical tech. Gain our experience, jump shift. I know. That's a touchy subject right there. We have an entire podcast right there.
Are you kidding? You will get us on a soapbox for 8 episodes.
But it's true. And you lose experience, you lose talent because people go where they can get paid more, or they go where they feel more respected or whatever. And that doesn't help us in our facility give high quality care when our good people leave. So, yeah.
Oh Lord.
That's yes, hit the nail on. Yeah. Okay. But to bring it all around, we've talked about a lot of different things, and we've talked kind of really a lot more about the issues and a lot more of the problems that are there, and how do we solve these problems? How do we bring our staff up to par, and then from par to excellence, and all of our staff? How do we find the people who are struggling and bring them up without them feeling that it's punitive, without them feeling that they're in trouble? But really, this is all about safe patient care, high quality patient care, great patient outcomes. This is why we are educating. This is why we are auditing. This is why we are learning. This is why we are staying at the forefront of best practice, so that we have good quality patient outcomes and safe patient care. So that's our goal, and that's what we want to have. And we're doing all of this learning and all of this educating to get our staff to that point. How do we know when they've learned anything? How do we know?
I don't think you will ever know that question or know the answer to that question. Honestly, that is such a difficult question to ask. I know that I don't have all the answers. I never will. I have always in my career been open to suggestions. I've never taken anything personal. I'm there for the patient, and I've always had that mindset. Our job is a privilege. And so staff have to be open to critique. And as leadership, you have to go about it with delicacy sometimes. How do you approach certain staff who are not open to change? And so your criticism has to be curtailed, where it's not criticism in a bad sense, of course. It's clinical criticism, where you go to staff and say, I've seen you doing it this way. We need to talk about this just a little bit. In the past, as we know, hospital education has just went down to everybody. If one thing happens, we rightfully so have to address the entire system to make sure that this one mistake doesn't happen across the system. But we also do have to hold people accountable, because if they're not practicing that best practice or whatever they're doing that you see as wrong, if we don't have individual meetings with them and validations, competencies every year, they continue to do that. If you learn how to do something using a piece of equipment in the operating room, if you learn how to do it incorrectly day one, a year from now, you're still going to be doing it incorrectly. If you learned that you could hook up an Aquaman, hooking up LR to it and not saline, a year from now, nobody's corrected you. You're still going to be hooking up LR to the Aquaman and not saline. But you never knew that you were doing it incorrectly.
Right. Yeah. And that's not good.
And here's the deal is that as an educator, when my students are not comfortable in a situation and I want them to get comfortable in that situation, guess who keeps putting them in that situation until they're comfortable?
The mean teacher.
So if you're not comfortable, for example, HANA table, I don't know why we keep picking on the HANA, but
you're afraid of it. That's why.
So we're going to put you in that situation. You're going to do these micro learning modules. And then guess what? I'm going to put you back in front of the HANA. And how are we going to know if you learned? Because you're going to improve. And if you did it, I'm going to put you back in training, and then I'm going to put you back in front of the HANA. That's how you close the loop, right? So hopefully you just see that the person's doing that particular skill better. And then in your macro analysis of the data, you look and all those SSIs that you are destroying in your role, Matt Lowe, right? Those outcomes should just improve, and that percentage should go down too, right?
Right. And you have to make it relevant to the staff. They have to understand, why does the change matter? An example I have is
why it's so important.
I love training new nurses in the OR. You teach them, why are they doing what they're doing? If they know the background of why they're doing it, they know how to change it later down the road. They can change it. And then I've had so many brand new nurses that want to transition to the afternoon or evening shifts. They want that, they want that independence. And I tell them, you have to know everything if you're going to be evenings.
God love
Yes,
them.
exactly. My favorite thing to do when newer nurses want to jump into an evening shift and they don't have that experience is, and this would be in the operating room when I was training them with a patient in the room. I'm like, your patient just coded. What are you doing right now? Patient just coded. Run a code and see what they would do. And like,
by yourself. There's nobody else there.
One of the answers would always be, I'm going to call the, manager, or I'm going to call the board right now. I'm like, they're not here. It's midnight. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's you, a surgeon, and a tech. What are you doing? And that would be an eye-opening example.
We're praying that anesthesia is on their game because anesthesia is going to run that code because that's who runs the code. We know this. But at the end of the day, who's our resources, right? And another good thing, too, is if you're on day shift and you think you want to work night shift or evening shift, look at who's always working late. And do you want to work with that surgeon every evening? Because that's who you're going to be working with all the time. So I hope you like whatever that surgeon might be doing every night till 9 o'clock at night, because that's where you'll be. But once again, an awareness and learning and being able to be competent in those areas. And okay, we've talked about a lot. We've come to the end of our time, and I don't think we've even really cracked the shell on this topic because education is too big to just condense into a 30-minute interview. But before we go, as we are wrapping up the season, I do want to give you the mic one last time and just see if you have any other final thoughts, any encouraging thoughts, or any advice that you would like to share with our listeners before we wrap this episode up.
My final thoughts is, I always tell staff on my educations that our job is a privilege. We are doing the same job every single day, especially if you're in a specialized setting, orthopedics, total joints, robotics. We do the same thing every single day. It becomes very factory setting to us when we're doing it every day. You're opening up for the same surgery that I did 3 times yesterday. I'm going to do it 3 times today, 3 times tomorrow. Just remember that our job is a privilege, and that even though it's normal and everyday to us, it's the one time that the patient is having their hernia repaired, the one time they're having that right knee replaced, and it is a game changer for them. And so it matters. Our job matters. And so if we ever become complacent in our job, we have to step back and think, why are we doing our job? Our job truly matters. And like I said earlier, always treat the patient like they're a loved family member. I say loved, by the way, because we don't like all our family members. So treat them like a loved.
You're not wrong.
Treat them like
somebody you love and you want to see good things happen.
Exactly. And always speak up and do what's right for the patient. Do what's best for the patient. That's what matters. If you ever come to your career where you don't necessarily care, or if you hear somebody say that the situation is okay this time, possibly something became contaminated and you're like, oh, it's questionable, but it's okay this time, you're done. You're done in the operating room. Reassess why you're there. It matters to that patient. It's going to change their life. Even a minor surgery changes their life, changes their situation for the rest of their life. So it does matter.
Best final thoughts I think we could wrap this whole season up with, because what we have done this whole season is ask those how do I questions. And ultimately it comes down to what am I doing that's for the patient good, for the best outcome, and making myself better so that I can continue to provide that good patient care. So Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you on this episode.
This was an absolute pleasure for me as well. Thank you. Anytime.
That was Matt Lowe, Clinical Programs Director for SSIs at Medline. And we talked about a lot of things in this episode, and we really focusing on education, but that bigger hurdle of how do we engage our staff? How do we actually get them to learn, not just spread all the information out and hope that they take it, but actually get them to learn it and then to apply it. And Chris, I think at the end of the whole conversation, he came down to something that was actually very applicable for this whole season, but also especially this conversation. But he talked about complacency. And if we get so complacent that we think we know it all, that we can't be taught something new, that what we were taught is the way it's supposed to be, and there is no change to my practice, then we are no longer fit to be in the operating room. We're done. And so that importance of avoiding complacency, of staying at the top of our game, and of making sure that we are always learning. Lifelong learners is the buzzword, I know, but we have to be learning so that we can continue to provide care.
Look, that's inviting Murphy's Law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the second you think you know everything, the second that I'm the best and this is what, like, that's when you're going to invite something bad to happen. And the thing is that it's not you it's happening to, it's the patient. And when you stop remembering that's the person that's the most important thing in the room, you don't need to be there anymore. And the things that Matt is doing, the things that Medline is doing are really important. And, we need our hospital systems to buy in. So I'm excited for everyone to hear that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And, you hit on another good point, because so many of our hospital systems, they don't have OR educators anymore. They don't have someone focused on educating OR staff, and the OR is unique. I mean, we are just we're just different. I don't really know how to say it, but we have unique learning needs. We have unique educational needs. We are special, and we like to tell people that. But when you don't have somebody dedicated to educating your staff, how are you going to expect them to stay on top of everything if you don't have somebody doing the education? And tasking your director, tasking your manager with also doing the education on top of their other job is just absurd. It happens all over the place. It happened to me when I was a manager. It's dumb. So having a company providing that education or getting it out there or coming up with ways to make learning fun and engaging is really cool. So that is going to put a wrap on this episode and on this season. Thank you so much for joining us this season as we have talked about a variety of topics and things that we just need to know more about. And hopefully you know by now that it's okay to ask those questions. We don't know everything. We can't. We never will. And if we're afraid to ask, then we're never going to learn. So make sure you just ask the questions if you don't know. And if somebody's asking you a question, don't be a troll, answer their question and help them learn as well. So that is my advice for this season. Don't be a troll. But on behalf of Chris, myself, and our whole team, thanks for listening to this week's episode of First Case.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of First Case. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to First Case on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for First Case in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@firstcasemedia.com. We look forward to hearing from you.